Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Visit our website, whoknewpodcast.com, email us at whoknewpodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter and on Facebook at Who Knew Podcast. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/whoknewpodcast. Today's episode is episode 8 of season 3, Human Nature. The Doctor is hiding from the family of blood in 1913 England. He is without his memory, and the only one to protect him is his maid, Martha. This episode is written by Paul Cornell, directed by Charles Palmer. It originally aired on the 26th of May, 2007, and the overnight ratings were 7.1 million viewers. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hi, this is Brian.
This is Kelsey.
This is Josh.
Hello, this is Auburn.
Arlene.
Hi, this is Frank.
Pew, pew! The Doctor and Martha run into the TARDIS under laser fire. The Doctor demands to know if they saw Martha's face, and she says they couldn't have. He hands Martha a pocket watch and says that his life depends on her, this watch, and then the Doctor wakes up in 1913. Martha, dressed in a maid's uniform, comes in, and he tells her about the dream where he was an alien and they were adventurers in the future. She says it's impossible and that he is completely human.
Best cold open ever.
Ever.
And I've never said that. No, I say that. I know I say that a lot.
To me, it's just they jumped right in. It's like, did they cut off the opening of the show when they aired it? Am I
Yeah,
it late?
even though
What
I've seen
happened?
this episode before, I rewound. I thought, did this pick up like later or something?
And that whole sequence is built to throw you off. You're really like, you are not supposed to feel comfortable at all. And then it completely turns. And it is just this lovely, bucolic British morning.
Yeah, the music does a 180 as well.
Yeah, the
Right.
music's very good too.
And then, so I watched this episode with my sister, my older sister, who's never seen Doctor Who ever. And that's when I had to pause.
Oh my goodness.
And I'd be like, wait, I need to give you some history, because then you won't like him, and we need to keep moving forward. He's a good person. His name is the Doctor, and she's like, which one's the Doctor? The white man? Yes, the white man's the Doctor. And just kind of give her like a little rundown of who Martha is and who the Doctor is, and the fact that he can regenerate. And she's like, okay.
So did she ask any of what's going on, or did you say, no, you need to know this before seeing this episode?
Because I remembered what the episode was as soon as I put it on, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, let me give you background, because then it doesn't make sense that he's completely human.
I want to know what you would have thought if you had not said anything.
I think it would have been an interesting way to watch the show. I don't. You're missing a whole subtext, but I don't necessarily think that would make it a bad episode for you.
I have a reply to that, but I'll save it for the end.
Oh, okay.
Better be some
Suspense.
I'm on
reply.
pins and needles.
All right, let's calm down.
Oh, shit.
let's keep going.
Lower my expectations.
I could throw in a little nitpick here, just to start. The Doctor says that they would chase them forever. Just remember that fact as we continue. If we don't do something now, we're going to be forever running from the family blood.
I'm sure Eugene will have something to say.
All right, calm down.
Wow, we're all snarky today. I like it.
The Doctor is now John Smith, a teacher from Farringham School for boys, with no memory of his real life. He is infatuated with Nurse Joan Redfern, and as they discuss the upcoming dance, he falls down a flight of stairs. Martha runs to see if he is all right, but Joan reminds her that she is only a maid, and Joan is the nurse. Joan tends to Mr. Smith, while he recounts to both of them about his dreams where he has two hearts and is hiding for some reason. Joan listens through a stethoscope and assures him that he only has one heartbeat. He shows her a journal where he has written about his dreams and says she can read it if she likes. She takes the book and leaves with Martha, reminding Martha of her position and not to be too familiar with Mr. Smith.
The biggest thing I like about this episode is his change in demeanor, how he's much more soft and a really nice. Like he just looked so happy all the time, and without the weight of the universe on his shoulders. And
I will agree with that.
And
That
a
statement.
real testament to Tennant to show that subtle difference. But it was a definite marked difference, and it wasn't cartoonish. I really enjoyed it.
That scene where before the credits, there's like almost a camera dolly in, and he smiles. And I really liked that smile on David Tennant's face. It was carefree. There wasn't any weight of the time war, of Gallifrey, of time travel, of Daleks. And I felt happy for him in that moment.
Yeah, it's contentment.
Yeah, and it's great that he's able to convey that in a smile.
Yeah, it was a marked difference that that your sister probably wouldn't even have experienced.
I just love how when they film these establishing shots, I guess you would say, setting up the setting of the episode, there's just a comfortable feeling here. The mood is established now at this point. There's no big worries yet. There's no big problems. There's just ordinary problems. They even said it in 1913 in a casual, comfortable way, even when they're talking about the racism. So, like, what I loved was, they're cleaning the floor, Martha and Jenny. And Martha is like, well, I could have problems, what with me being... And, she points to herself. And there's a little pause, and Jenny just goes, a Londoner? Which is very funny, because it establishes racism exists, but not everybody's racist. Yes. And then, the students come by, and that's when you see the blatant racism. How can you see that this is clean? I think this episode captures the romanticized feeling that we have for those years right before World War I so much quicker and so much better than all of Daleks in Manhattan.
I agree with that.
Right.
I also think because, I don't know about all the interiors, but there was a lot of location shooting in here. So
And it's
nothing
beautiful.
felt like a set.
It's beautiful.
So I wouldn't be surprised if the whole thing was on location. They were shooting in some big
Yes,
school or
they did.
Yeah, so
They did.
One question around this scene for the location. Jenny talking to Martha says things are so different in your country. Was this school set in a different kingdom of Great Britain, or
No.
or is that just like a generic where you're from?
I think it's because Martha and John Smith have come, and Martha has already told Jenny that they're going to be leaving to travel elsewhere. So I think Jenny just took that to assume they're not from around here.
I took it as Martha's probably from some African country, and
Yes.
she's learned to speak this way.
Yes.
Well, also, a lot of these boys, this is a boarding school. All their parents are somewhere else, and we learn later that a lot of them are in the military. So that's why I think this is a place where people are displaced.
Okay.
And this school is definitely in England. I mean, this is your quintessential romanticized view of rich white kids' school out in the country, prepping these kids to run the country when they're adults.
Yeah.
I think it could also be our equivalent to what we say of, well, things must be nice in your world, if you look at it this way. Because she does say she's from London, and the whole suffragette
Movement
was going on, and how different that is than what's going on here. And so maybe not exactly the same, but kind of that type of idea.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I agree. I didn't know if it was this school was a well-known school, like a West Point of Great Britain, where military people went. And nope, all makes sense now. I think there was the other line later, you'll get to it, but where he says that he learned to draw on Gallifrey.
Right.
And he said it was an island.
Ireland.
Ireland.
He said it's in
She
Ireland.
asked, "Is it
Okay.
Ireland?" He goes,
I thought he
think so.
said, oh, it's an island, but he said
No, he
Ireland.
says
it's
it.
in Ireland.
It's
Okay.
in Ireland.
Okay.
Back to the military portion of this, when they show that opening shot of the kids marching, and then there's the flagpole. Those kids are all off step, and
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, they would have known. That's basic military drilling. They should know how to march.
Well, they were extras.
I know, but still, if you want to make everything else believable,
They were still
focus on
learning.
I love Martha in this whole scene. I mean, she knows, and she's dealing with the racism, but knows that there's something more important going on. She's only going to be there for a bit.
Right.
And also acknowledging that many of these kids are going to be dead in a
Right.
year or two because of the war.
Right.
But just her attitude when she comes barging in after the doctor falls, comes into his office. You don't knock. She runs back there. Her face. Knock, knock, knock. There, I'm done. And so she was like, fine, I'll pacify you as much as I can. But I got to know what's going
A
on.
lot of it too feels like what Brian was saying, where it feels like she's been dealing with this for a number of weeks now, or 2 months.
2
Yeah.
months.
So it's not new to her that people are treating her this way. Like we are stepping in after all this has been happening. So people have been giving her crap like that for 2 months now, and she's been dealing with it. So here we go again.
Right,
they-
but I like what you brought up, Frank, because I hadn't thought of that. That shows such good character that Martha, or it shows that Martha has such a good character in her that she's not bitter towards it.
And they could have gone
That I
more
hadn't
realism with it, but I'm glad they didn't. They're still touching on the issue, and throughout the whole 2 episodes, so much better than Daleks. And I think that's just the writing. Switching topics, when Joan, I should say, is listening to the Doctor's heartbeat, and that starts Rose's theme.
Oh, really?
I
And
didn't
that
catch
got to me, going, that's Rose's
And when
theme.
did we first do?
It's a different arrangement of
A
Rose's theme.
variation, and
Yeah.
so they do it a couple of times, and it's like, does his heart know Rose?
Rose.
You know, and is it? But no, it isn't the.
heartbeat for Rose.
We've had that, he definitely loves Rose
Yeah.
and all
Yeah,
that.
that's
So it's like, is it Rose? And Brian was saying, well, it's more him being in love, and is that the blossoming of the love between him and Joan? And that's starting. So that music is associated with love, not necessarily
Rose.
the one love, right?
Because I'll point it out when they bring it up again, and it's more overt, I guess. But it's definitely used throughout this episode.
I mean, I thought of Rose too, but in my mind, I really want that moment to be John and Joan, and just John and Joan, because I, in this opening scenes, I already love the two of them together.
But Rose is in the journal. So
Yes.
it goes
Because of
from,
the-
Yes,
the
yes, yes.
heartbeat thing, you have to have that, and you talk about the journal, and then her picture's there.
Oh yeah, and that
And all
must
that.
have stung so much. I mean, you see it.
Yeah, in Martha's eyes.
And Martha's face is like.
But she wasn't in the dream though. He told her she was in his dream.
Yes, that's right. She
But
was.
that was
Yeah.
reality memory, not something
Right.
he wrote down.
He
in the-
didn't make a point to write it down.
And it wasn't important enough
Right.
for him
right.
to write down.
Right.
I
I
do-
did
Oh,
love
sorry,
the-
Martha is in the.
Martha is in the journal. We have a replicated
Oh.
copy of it, and she is in the journal.
which you can buy online.
But in the episode, Martha's not in the journal. I didn't know Martha was.
Well,
in
they
the
didn't show
journal.
her in the journal.
They don't
in the
show her
episode.
in the journal, but it's a plot point because Joan's like, oh, who's this woman? And Martha's like, oh, is it me? You know, and then it's not.
Right.
And
Oh, I call her Rose.
So it's like a double
face.
whammy for
Yeah.
Martha right there.
No, I do feel sorry for Martha in this episode. I'll just come out and say that, like it's several times episode.
Oh,
Poor
yeah.
Martha.
Yeah.
Well, this doctor definitely has a type. Joan, Madame de Pompadour.
Yeah.
It's like strong
Rose.
female blondes. and then
Likes
Rose
his strong
became
blondes,
that.
yeah.
You know, she didn't start off as that, but she became a strong.
And I love that moment when, right before he falls, Joan is just like, "Could you stop being a man and just ask me out?" Oh, look, there's a dance. You know.
I mean, like the subtle, not subtle segue.
Right.
She's like,
Well, she led him right to that
yeah, and she was
flyer.
like, John, have you seen this dance?
I kept thinking of Back to the Future. It's the Enchantment Under the Sea dance.
It's a rhythmic celebration of movement.
And then to turn things a little on the geeky side, when Matron Joan, Nurse Joan, is tending to the wound on the back of John Smith's head, I kept thinking, is that the Data panel from Star Trek?
Data always wanted to be human.
There you go. There you go. Human Nature is the name of the episode.
And to go from a geeky moment to a history geek moment, the dance is on November 11th, which is the Armistice Day. November, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918 is when World War I ended. So it's the anniversary before it happens.
In the boys' dormitory, Hutchinson bullies a younger student, Timothy Latimer, into writing his homework. When Timothy says that Hutchinson's father should enjoy his transfer, he gets pushed around for reading private letters. Tim says he didn't read the letter, but is good at guessing. It turns out Tim is a bit psychic. Another student, Jeremy Baines, says he knows where some beer is hidden and leaves through the window to find it. As he finds the beer in the woods, he is interrupted by a strange green light landing nearby. He stumbles across an entrance to an invisible spaceship and goes inside. He encounters aliens who say that they are the family. One of them possesses Baines's body and then returns to the dormitory without the beer, to the disappointment of his friends. But Tim can sense that something is terribly wrong.
We're getting another example of non-subtle acting style with Mr. Baines.
Mr. Baines?
He ruins this episode for me.
And I'm okay with it. I know Brian and Frank disagree.
He doesn't ruin the episode for me, but I really have to take some deep breaths while he's on screen.
He plays it like he's Sheldon Cooper, you know, from Big Bang Theory. He's like, well, what is this? This is odd. And his whole facial expression, how he touches the ship, it just seems like he's doing a parody.
When later on in the episode, I won't spoil too much, when other people are then possessed, they behave the same way. So it falls into place when
I-
To me,
I would
they
disagree
behave
with you.
very differently than he does. Where the other ones are more evil, but they seem to be true to their
yeah,
character.
The father and the sister, yeah, but the mother I felt was doing the same thing.
I would agree with Josh.
And I disagree with both of you.
To me, that's Doctor Who. There's always a bit of campy cheesiness in every episode. This didn't have
Yeah.
much in the makeup or effects department, but it had it there.
The kids would love this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I necessarily blame the actor 100% because it's definitely something that the director wanted. Listening to the commentary of the episode, they love him. It's like, okay.
I do think he gave them what they wanted.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would have told him to do something else.
Right.
Yeah.
And that to me, that's so opposite of what the rest of the feeling and tone
Well,
of the
true.
show
It is
is.
out of tone
That's
with
too
the
much.
episode. It reminded me of Hungry.
Right.
Yes.
When he was going to follow the green light and finally reach the spaceship, I took it as he was such an upper crust, like expected the whole world to bow to his will, that this thing happening in the middle of the woods, he was like, well, of course I should go and see what's going on there, and it's going to be okay because I'm some lord's son, and everything's okay. So
I think that is how it is
Yeah.
portrayed.
It was almost like that tone that the Sheldon mannerisms that you mentioned, Frank. It was almost like he was like talking like he's heard his father talk.
To
This
cover
is
his
how
fear.
I should, to cover his fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is how I should act in this situation.
I completely
Okay.
agree with you on that. Totally agree with you on that. And I've always felt that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an effective portrayal.
This is the same actor who played the Targaryen on
Yeah,
the first
Viserys.
Viserys, and
Something like that.
I
I feel the
found-
same way with
Yeah,
Viserys.
no. And I agree, Ryan. With Viserys, the acting of Viserys bothered me. I think when I watched Game of Thrones.
It's never thrown me out of it. I just accept it and move on. It's not something that bothers me like it does you guys.
Well, I will say now, as we move through the 2 episodes, it gets better.
But
Yeah.
I like the effect of the invisible ship. I thought that was
Oh,
cool.
yeah, that was very cool.
well done.
Yeah.
Also, too, thinking about like someone would never do that. Like no one's gonna go into that ship. It may not even occur to them it's dangerous. It's not like us saying that looks like a spaceship. I'm not gonna go in there. To someone of that time, it's so foreign. They may not even understand. And he's a kid.
I saw it more like he's really cocky.
Well, yeah, I took it that way
And
too.
He's like, well, if anyone can investigate it,
Yeah,
I can.
right.
And I can know what's going to happen throughout all these things.
Yeah.
So I'm not scared because nothing can hurt me.
They've never seen aliens yet.
Right. Exactly.
But I mean, Baines is not a character you're supposed to like.
Right.
So it's like I wanted him to go into the ship.
But it's not the character that we have the issue with. It's
I
the
know.
portrayal of.
But I'm just saying
Yeah,
is that
acting.
the character and the actor go hand in hand, and I don't care if he survives or doesn't.
I did think
So
the
I'm
green
okay.
light and the green light on the fields and the green light descending, I thought Baines was going to find the Devil's Tower on the other side of the hill. It was very reminiscent of Close Encounters
Yeah.
for me, which I loved. I mean, it's just like, oh, that's a nice little tidbit. And it's green light. Sorry, it wasn't blue, Eugene.
Well, Greenlight has a lot of history with Doctor Who, the Green Death and other monsters. So there's lots of green in Doctor Who. There's like one point there's a green. Is it the Green Death with the green hand and infecting? And then
Ark in Space, it's
Ark in
green
Space,
bubble wrap.
It's a green alien larvae.
With
Larvae,
bubble wrap.
yeah.
Gross.
At the same time, Martha and Jenny are having a drink outside the pub because servants are not welcome inside. While they are talking, Martha sees the strange green light in the sky. The green light shines on Joan, who is alone on the road to the pub. The light moves on, and Joan runs up to Martha and Jenny, asking if they saw it. John arrives and says it was only a meteorite and escorts Joan home. Martha and Jenny run to where the light seemed to have landed, but see nothing.
In the wood, there's a green spotlight in the forest searching for a landing spot, I assume now, but it does come on to Joan before she arrives to take the doctor to the dance. And if the aliens had just taken her body, they might have uncovered the doctor and the whole plot would have been over very quickly.
Well, it's
Yeah,
not,
that's
which,
true.
is that around the dance, or is that's like
It's
isn't
like-
that much earlier?
That's the night before the dance, I think.
Right, yeah.
The dance is the next night.
John escorts her back to the school. I don't know what was Joan
Yeah.
doing though.
I think she was just
That's a
walking
good
She was
point.
going to the pub.
So
And
they
then
were
when she
at the
got
pub?
there, John
Yes.
was like, "Oh, I'm
Oh.
leaving. You want me to escort you home?" And she's like, "Oh, I was gonna get a drink, but I guess not."
When the guy you're infatuated with says, I'll walk you home, all right, yeah, I'll
It's
go
time
home.
to go home.
Yeah.
Well, if the family blood had just assimilated Joan there in the field,
Yeah.
they would have
This
gotten
episode
to their
would-
doctor.
Would not have been a two-parter.
Right. I found it interesting to have John Smith not as the doctor mansplaining meteorites to everybody else that was listening.
That he didn't
Yeah.
even see.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
you
he
would
did.
know. You're a man.
He did see.
Did he
They
see it?
Yeah. And then they had the ship going, and you could see the trail.
Oh, okay.
He goes, "Oh, that's a
Yeah, they
meteorite."
saw it
That was
later
a
on.
And
meteorite.
Martha's like, "There's more to this than that." So okay, whatever.
I think she said, like, it's very close. He's like, no, it's far,
Yeah, she's
far
like,
away.
"What?"
Joan and Jenny, this is their world, so they're like, all right, walk me home.
Yeah.
You know, it's over and done with now. The
I know
man
Jenny
says.
seemed really upset when he goes, "Well, how about you two ladies? Should I walk you home too?" And Martha's like, "No,
We're
we're fine." And Jenny's like, "Really? Come on, we need a man to walk us home."
Well, yeah. She's like, well, I don't want to walk there by myself in the dark.
The next day, Martha goes to the cabin in the woods where she hid the TARDIS. There, she recalls what the doctor told her about the family and the fob watch. The family are hunters and can track him by scent. Their lifespan is coming to an end and they need to feed on him. In order to hide, he had to stop being a Time Lord. He used a chameleon arch to rewrite his biology and place all his Time Lordness into the watch. Martha rewatches the recording instructions he left for her. If the family finds them, she is to open the watch because everything that he is and was is in the watch. It had a perception filter on it, so it will seem ordinary, but once it's opened, the family will find them.
They did a really good job explaining this very quickly. It was a lot of information, but you don't get lost at all.
And then here we get the musical score for Only Martha Knows when she's riding the bike into the shed or the cabin. And it's very reminiscent of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, if anybody remembers that bicycle scene.
It's reminiscent of Raindrops Keep Falling on
Yeah,
My Head.
that's what I was gonna
Or
say.
the do-do-do-do-do-do.
The music. Yeah, the music.
Yeah, I'll have to listen to it again.
Well, they actually had a version that was even more.
Yeah.
Oh,
They actually
really?
had a whistling version.
And that one is the one on the soundtrack. The one we hear in
Oh,
the
yeah.
show doesn't have the whistling.
yeah, and on the commentary, they're like, "Did you get rid of the whistling because of it's too much?" Like, and he's like,
said yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know, we're out in the countryside of Britain,
A carefree.
carefree day, which doesn't quite fit what Martha's doing.
Yeah.
But okay.
I didn't remember how he turned human. I was waiting with bated breath to find out how. So in this moment, I got a good charge out of it, geek-wise, about how it all happened. I'm like, oh, okay, that's how he did it. I all of a sudden got more interested in rewatching it because I couldn't remember how it happened.
I love how they tie it to the same kind of technology that the TARDIS uses to cloak. The TARDIS has a chameleon circuit. This is a chameleon arch. So he's using, you know, what the TARDIS uses to physically change into a police box or an organ or
Okay.
a fireplace. But this one works on living beings. It is the introduction of the chameleon arch.
It's the
We
first
will
time.
see it again.
Yeah.
I love that because it is kind of like a big deal. Like, how could he change himself into being human? But they're just by just saying chameleon arch. Oh, okay.
I accept it.
It's
right
Time
away.
Lord technology, you know, and this is great.
Yeah. And that scene, we see in the flashback him actually changing and using the chameleon arch.
Yeah.
And just his acting and being in pain and Martha's reaction to it is
So
very,
good.
very convincing.
Yeah, they, you know, he said that they burnt the colors out a little too much, so it's very stark. So it's very different from the lush greens and flowers that you see, and it's all very handheld, and it's almost, especially when he's screaming. For me, it's all done so well. It's really hard for me to watch it. I mean, it's only
Yeah.
a quick shot,
Yeah.
but it is just kind of like, oh, I don't want to see the doctor in
Yeah,
this much
yeah, it's a
pain.
very visceral.
And Martha being so horrified of
Yeah.
what she's seeing. Along the same lines, but in a different thing. When you're seeing Baines and Jenny as the family, spoiler, sorry, it's with a fisheye lens. And that was something I never noticed until I heard the commentary.
Yep.
And again, it makes me kind of go, maybe that's why, another reason why I don't like Baines, because he seems off.
Yes.
He seems too big.
Stretched.
Stretched.
Yeah.
Because, you know, so it's like, okay, the deck was really stacked against this actor. Now back to this scene. This is where she plays the recording. I mean, you know, here are the 4 things that you have to do, and that's the first 4 of 26.
23.
So the doctor comes and he makes this recording of the 23 things that she has to do. When did he record this? What we saw was they're running into the TARDIS and the people are right there and we got to run and we got to do this now, and it's all frenetic and frantic. And he made a recording for Martha, which I get. But is Martha just standing there the whole time going, they're going to find us, wrap the recording up?
The watch is already ready. When he comes in that opening scene, it's already in his head. He's not thinking of it then. Almost as if this has all been prepped in case this happens, and it happened, and that's where we come into the episode.
Okay, I feel like Frank at the end of Doomsday. with the hologram and have a good life. And we all said it was a recording. And you said, how could it be a recording? He's not going to know where Rose is standing. And you said it was a transmission.
I like the idea that Josh is bringing up, that the recording and the watch was all part of the doctor's bug out bag. Like it's his bug out bag. Like,
Thank you. See, all you had was bug out bag. Now I like it. Now I think it's funny.
But
I like it.
Also, Martha could have been standing there while he made the recording. She's not going to remember all that. That's why he made the recording.
I totally understand, but it is just kind of like,
When did you have
Right,
time?
it's like,
La, la, la,
'cause doing that kind of
He has a time
stops
machine.
Yeah.
Like
she,
it kind
actually,
of
you know what? Maybe
breaks
she's
it.
busy in the wardrobe getting the
That's what I was
1915
thinking.
clothes.
She-
Yeah,
That's what I was
there
gonna
you
say.
go. That's another good.
And I know it's a time machine, but they're chasing them through time.
So they're just keep running through the time, and it's like it's been a while of them running, and he goes, you know, they're gonna chase us forever, so I have to do this.
Yeah.
So as they're still running,
Maybe they only catch up to them every 33 minutes.
Maybe.
There.
yes.
Yeah. I
don't
never
have
had
a
a
sound
problem
effect
with
for
it. I mean, either I like that idea that it's done beforehand as the bag, but I never had a problem with it. It was, this is going to happen. We're getting everything ready. And even when he went to sit down, he's in a rush. He's there sitting down.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you everything's simple and straightforward and tell you all rather than rushing through it. So he's calmed himself down just to say that part. She's off doing something else, getting ready. We're going to 1913. You need to get the outfits. You need to get all that stuff prepared, you know, because I'm not going to be useful to you. So these are all the things. And so she's off doing that.
I thought it actually occurred to me as well, but I kind of just thought what I said.
Did he just like black out after the chameleon thing? Like
Yeah,
then
how did he get
had
into
to like
school?
Martha had to get him out of the TARDIS, because if he's John and he wakes up
Why am
in
I
the TARDIS,
Why am I in this big room?
He has residual memory. He said that I'll have enough residual memory to install you wherever we go.
Oh, and then
The
it'll go.
TARDIS will take care
don't
of
let
me.
But don't let me lose you.
Yeah, don't let me lose you.
Oh,
And then
see,
I'll have
I-
enough residual memory to like get her in, and then it's gonna gradually go away. Like everything that he has as a doctor is just gonna be like gone
Right.
completely.
We didn't
Oh,
see
so
that.
when
Right.
they first started the school, he was the doctor pretending to be
No.
John
No,
Smith?
No.
he
He's
was
John
John
Smith.
Smith with a little bit of with the faint idea
That he's
of
the
like,
doc-
oh, this is going away, doctor. Like,
Oh.
like he knew what he was getting himself into. I am
They
John
probably
Smith
used the
with
psychic paper to get his
Yeah.
papers into the
the
school.
schools and like do like that.
Yeah.
She just kind of inserts him into the path of their story. And she probably has the psychic paper. And when they arrive, she might be like, "Oh, sir, here's your credentials to show them," and shows them. And he says, "Oh, look, I'm a teacher, and this is my maid, I would like her to be a housemaid for the school," and that all gets set up. So that's how I
Yeah.
see that happening.
There's the energy you're talking about that he will recognize Martha as the person who's giving him the information and
I
control, you know, going the suggestions of this is what's happening. I'm going along with whoever this person is, this Martha. I have enough of that where I'll go along with what you say, what you're doing. Like you said, putting everything in. Oh, I'm John Smith because she says so. Going along with it. Okay, that's right. I'm a teacher. That's what she said. That's who I am. I'm going along with it. That's the
But the
essence.
TARDIS took care of all of this.
Yeah.
So how does Martha know?
It's in number 12 through 15 of the
That we
recording
fast-forwarded.
things that we never see.
And I also
And
think,
I mean, that's kind of like half a joke, but also kind of half serious.
Yeah.
And the thing is, to me, I like that a lot because it really, even though we don't see it and it didn't need to have happened, I like it because to me it really puts Martha, it really is like Martha can take care of anything. His inherent trust of Martha that the TARDIS gives him, I see that as like a reverse, like perception filter. Like, here's the perception filter on the fob watch. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. At the same time, he has a perception in his mind of Martha. You need to innately trust this person.
It's either in the flashback or in the video. Don't let me abandon
The
you.
video.
Rule 4.
So it's
Right.
not, the TARDIS isn't gonna completely
Yes.
make a connection
And
between
even
them.
jumping the timeline in the episode a little
fires
bit, he
her.
does fire her and get rid of her.
But that's what I was talking about with what Arlene was saying. That's what she said there was. Yeah, he'll have enough residual something. I can't remember the terminology that you used or it was on
Energy.
TV. That he'll go along with what she says. You know, so there's enough there at the beginning. So that's what I thought it was more of along the lines of Martha's, you know, will lead him. I will follow where you go, where you lead me. So there's
So it's
enough
kind
there
of we're
to tie
saying
us
the
together.
same thing.
Right. Right.
just in different perceptions.
Because that's left to interpretation. So
Yeah.
I wonder if they
anything
had
is-
him record the whole list.
It's on the DVD.
Oh,
it's
is
a
it?
deleted
Oh, there
scene. And so what happens is that he records 1 through 4 because those are written out for him.
Right.
And then he has to fill in for like 4 minutes. So he rambles. He says, "Don't let me eat any pears. If I'm
That's
human-
number 5. He hates pears.
And if I'm a human, I don't want to eat a pear and then be like, I have this bad taste in my mouth."
So Tennant was improv.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he
then-
talks about, oh, my favorite song is...
The favorite band was the House Martins.
So I really like the House Martins, and this is really, and he just talks. And he's like, so this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
And then
'cause
after,
you're just gonna
then after
fast
that,
forward
it
through
was
this.
gibberish. He just starts saying things like gobbledygook. And then at the end, he says the last part that's actually recorded. So they filmed that portion so that they could fast forward through it and then get to the last part. So I tried to watch this episode at work, and it was at this point where I got a little emotional. I was like, this is the hologram moment from Eccleston. It's like, I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to watch this at home.
I have 2 things for this scene. The first, great job by the art department. I don't know if you guys noticed the Gallifreyan sticky notes
Yes.
on the video monitor.
video
I
I've
thought-
monitor.
noticed them in the.
Yeah,
I remember
they're-
noticing
It's
them, but
awesome.
not
Yeah, they were very cool there. And second, connecting to what I said at the beginning, it's here that we get the part of the story that we'll hide and wait for them to die because the family has a 3-month lifespan if they don't
Find a new host.
find a new host.
I
He
guess,
says that in
yeah.
the video.
Like mayflies.
Yeah, it's very quick and it doesn't matter. Like, you
all
know,
have to be hiding for
it's a
3
good
months.
show without it. It's just one of those things where
No, you're right, but he said that thing in the very beginning that's
Right.
totally contradictory.
Right. So they could have flown around for 3 months of time and just waited out them dying. Maybe the TARDIS, maybe fuel was low and they had to
Oh,
wait.
No,
but
they
you know
would have
what?
found them.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really making them out to be a really, really, really big threat in the
Right.
beginning. So it's like, there's nowhere we can run because there's
But they-
nowhere in time and place where we can run for the next 3 months without them finding me. So I need to not exist for that
Right.
3 month
And
period.
they are hunters.
But they
Hunters.
couldn't just keep
Running.
going for 3 months. Instead, they
They
have
could
to
have been running
go to a British
constantly
town
for 3
and
months
have
with the
people
threat
die.
of possibly something
Yeah.
going wrong and being caught.
I get it, but
Yeah.
a little
I think-
disconnect
yeah,
for
I
me
think
in
what
the.
Auburn- oh, sorry. I think Auburn's problem with that is he was like, okay, so the option is run for 3 months or hide for 3 months. Like the likelihood of us to outrun them for 3 months was probably, I guess, was low enough that the doctor chose to hide.
Never tell me the odds. No.
Yeah. No, I mean, I buy
Yeah.
it. I'm not saying it ruins the episode or anything. It's just one of those things where, like, wait, and then it took them 2 months to find them in this town because
They hid really
because
well.
they were hidden really well. But, you know, the consequences of hiding amongst civilians is,
As we'll find out.
Yeah.
It's all Tim's fault.
yeah.
But I understand what you mean. I wish they would have written it just that one line a little bit differently.
It's like, oh, they'll chase us
'Cause it's
forever.
such
Well,
a
no,
good
they would have
episode,
chased
but-
us for 3
right.
months. Then-
Maybe
Rather
he
than
meant
they'll
forever.
never give up.
Maybe he meant forever because they were traveling through time as well.
Yes, and of course there's the whole outside of time. Maybe in that case, then they could live forever.
I like that, Josh.
Forever is 3 months.
Tim visits Mr. Smith to borrow a book they discussed earlier. As John looks for it, the watch calls out to Tim, saying that it is trapped. He opens the pocket watch, which alerts Baines in another part of the school. As John returns with the book, Tim quickly closes it and puts it in his pocket. He's very confused by the images in his mind of John Smith being the doctor. In the dormitory, he opens the watch again, which tells him he is not alone, and to keep the watch hidden.
You'd recognize the 2 other notable actors in this show was Tim from About a Boy, right? Was it?
No, Love Actually.
From Love Actually, the young boy. Yeah, I did that the other time too.
His name is Thomas Brody Sangster.
There you go, Thomas Brody Sangster. I was about to say that.
Rolls off the tongue.
And
Where else have we seen him, Josh?
he's in Game of Thrones
As
as the warg, one of the wargs.
Jojen Reed.
Jojen.
Oh, there you
Reed.
go.
Red
Yeah,
Reed.
yeah. I'm lucky enough on Game of Thrones to know who they're talking about, let alone say who they're talking about.
It's okay, he's dead.
Yeah.
And that's not a spoiler because everybody's dead.
Right, and then he has a very bit part in The Force Awakens. He's one of the Imperial officers.
I think his biggest role is the voice of Ferb in Phineas and Ferb.
Oh, really?
For like the 2 sentences he says in each episode.
And then the woman who plays Joan, I mostly know her from the TV series Spaced with Simon Pegg. It was a show, a British show that
Edgar Wright.
Wright produced and wrote and directed.
And she is completely
different.
It's
completely
just
different.
wow.
Like when I think I saw this first.
I did too.
And then when I went back and saw Space, because part of me was like, who is this? Obviously, I don't know everyone in Britain who's a more well-known actress, but I was like, wow, they gave a really big part to someone who I have no idea who they are. And then when I saw Spaced, I'm like, oh my god,
You are a really good actress.
And she has a very bit role in
Shaun of the Dead.
thank you.
Her name is Jessica Hines. And then Baines is played by Harry Lloyd, who is the great-great-great-grandson of Charles Dickens.
What do you know about that? I guess you knew that
And
he was
you
the
were
great-
besmirching his acting.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
And at one point, he was dating the actress that plays Tish, Martha's sister.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Baines. You can also hear Joan's voice, Jessica, in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. She's the letter to Harry,
The
saying that
squealer or the squeller or what?
The
is
howler?
The howler thing.
saying that he is kicked out of school.
Yeah, he's been expelled. Hoping
Matilda-
you all well.
Spoiler.
Matilda Hopkirk.
The dialogue in that scene, I think, was brilliant because
Between Tim and
right.
and John.
Oh.
Right, because it says everything about what this episode is. The doctor's talking to him and saying, no man should hide himself. And talking to him going, you're clever, but you're hiding it. And it's just talking about himself in that. And
So
the
meta.
watch is telling him, you are not alone, which was recorded in Tennant's voice, which was back with the face of Bo in Gridlock, told the doctor. So there's just so much going on in this dialogue.
And he
Well,
gave Tim a blue
That's a
book.
really good.
And the book is the definitive account of, I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm just going to say Mafeking. I looked that up.
That was the best pronunciation.
I was going to look that up.
For.
That is a town in South Africa, and it was the place of a siege in 1899 and 1900, where British soldiers defended a town against the Boers in the Boer War. So they just threw that in there as a little Easter egg because it's a little foreshadowing. Tim should probably read. He might need those skills soon.
Baines senses the watch again and communicates with the family to activate their soldiers. Mr. Clark, a farmer walking nearby, is surrounded by scarecrows and taken to the alien ship. A young girl, Lucy Cartwright, is also taken by the scarecrows. They are both possessed by the family and now refer to each other as father and daughter. Later, the scarecrows capture Jenny, who is possessed by mother.
Isn't it father of mine and daughter of mine?
I love that. It's a nice little clever.
That's something Russell came up with.
And those scarecrows are really creepy.
Aren't
They are done well.
They're really creepy.
I think the
There.
best
Yes.
one is the one with the red stitching. It looks like blood.
Oh, it's so scary.
Is that really what scarecrows look like?
I don't know.
Scarecrows are
Very.
more, scarecrows are whatever you have on hand to use.
Yeah.
It was mentioned that Russell did want to throw in a traditional villain, so I think this was him just saying, just make something scary.
I don't know if it's like very historically accurate because in countryside, 1913 Britain, would you really see a child holding a red
balloon.
rubber
Yeah,
balloon?
where would she have gotten the balloon from?
Yeah, I had red helium balloon.
With helium.
Helium.
That
But that's
lasts
why you didn't
for a
give it
really
up.
long time.
I think it's a total
This is
nod.
something special.
I think it's a total nod to the red balloon.
Yeah.
We recently watched
Remembrance of the Daleks.
Remembrance of
Yes.
the Daleks, where we had a similar creepy little girl. And is it the same
It's the
music
same.
cue?
It's the same music, but arrangements is different.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
That creepy nursery rhyme
Yeah.
music. It's just so
Love
fun
Doctor
to have
Who.
creepy
Yeah.
little kids.
Yeah, and she skips as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, all little girls are just creepy.
yeah.
Go.
Ow!
The scene where they took the little girl was longer. It was part of the deleted scenes, which I don't know if in the actual episode, if they kept it, if it would have slowed down or had an odd pacing, but it was a good scene.
I
and
think it
liked-
slows it down.
I liked it. I liked
Yeah.
how it went on and how she interacted with the scarecrow. I just thought it was nicely done.
And you can see that on the DVD.
Correct. And those guys playing the scarecrows were also the Cybermen and the Ood and some others, like the background monster extras. So it's
Don't
funny.
pull back the curtain.
You mean the actors or
The people playing the
right.
scarecrows, yes.
No way. Oh, that's
They're
great.
the regular background monster extras.
Nice.
I didn't even
cool.
know that was a job.
John is overseeing artillery training where Hutchison is complaining about Tim's lack of concentration. Tim is having a vision of a future where he and Hutchison are killed by a bomb during a huge battle. Smith gives Hutchison permission to take Tim away for a beating.
Yeah, I know.
Casually. Just a casually,
Different
permission
time.
granted.
Different
Was from
time,
the
guys.
doctor.
Yes.
Different time.
And I think they say on the commentary that they were really pleased that got left in. Everybody really wanted it to stay in, and they just thought that it might get cut. But they left it in, which is great. Where was I? Baines sniffs John, but doesn't smell Time Lord. Later, John and Joan are walking around town, and she tells him that she does not like the military discipline the boys are receiving. She asks him about the story in his journal about a war coming next year that is like a shadow falling across the whole world. He is distracted when he sees a woman with a pram about to walk under a falling piano. He grabs a cricket ball and throws it, causing a chain of events that ends with a milk jug falling in front of the woman and stopping her, just as the piano falls to the ground. Full of excitement, John has enough courage to ask Joan to that night's dance.
What's a pram?
A baby stroller.
There we go. I'm just asking for us ignorant Americans that call everything by a different name.
This is something we don't hear often.
What's cricket? Just kidding.
No, I'm not. What's cricket?
It's that sport.
Cricket is a
With a
game that is
paddle.
played and can be played for 5 days and still end in a tie.
Seriously?
That's cricket.
I like that they use a cricket ball because it's a reference to the Fifth Doctor.
Yeah.
And it's also a reference to something I'll allude
We'll talk
to
about
in
later.
next episode.
I love this sequence. I thought it was great because we've had a lack of Doctor for this whole episode. So to see this moment, plus back to film history or whatever, I'm convinced that the pram is a callback to Battleship Potemkin,
Yes,
It is.
Yeah, it is.
And also to the Untouchables.
Untouchables, yeah.
which is a
Yes.
which is a
Which is-
direct callback to Battleship Potemkin.
So it's all circular.
Yeah, and it is, whoever wrote this loves Mousetrap.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Not the Agatha Christie play, the actual game that we had when we were kids.
From
Yeah.
Milton Bradley.
so
In stores now.
All the cause and effects.
Oh,
go
look,
along
there's
the
a
whole
rope.
route.
It's fraying. It's about to fall. A piano is being lifted up.
Yeah, why is it always pianos?
Because it's the most
1913.
dramatic crane.
I was waiting
when
for
it-
Laurel and Hardy to run out after it crashed.
This is another example, like Frank pointed out earlier, where dialogue is really, really good. But Joan says that her husband died in
Spy on Cop.
which was another battle of the Boer Wars. This was in the Second Boer War.
in South Africa.
So, which is like the last major military engagement that the British had before World War One. So, if you notice, there's a pattern. These episodes are talking about war, and war happens over and over and over again. But the way they write it, they're saying that what is to come is like nothing you've had before. It's one of those things on a deep level
Yeah.
of the episode where you just kind of think about it. War is inevitable. War happens. It just happens over and over again. And these people have become used to it. They're teaching their children how to fire machine guns without even a thought. And then they give casual beatings.
And
But
the
this
and the
one-
doctor was teaching about war when he first opened up the episode.
Waterloo. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
the Battle of Waterloo.
With Napoleon.
So then, if you listen to how the doctor is talking, the doctor says, because she's saying, I want heroes that are not war heroes. And the doctor says, well, you can have that. And he says, everyday life can provide honor and valor. Does that sound familiar? You can find countries' heroes in smaller places. Doesn't have to be on a war battlefield. And then he says, well, he's actually pausing while he says this next line, where he says, you can find country heroes in the smaller places in the most ordinary of deeds. So I keep harping on it, and I hope you all don't mind. But again, it's the doctor saying ordinary is extraordinary. And this is John Smith. He's not the doctor, and yet it's still there. The goodness of the doctor is the goodness of John Smith. And I just absolutely love it. And then later they're walking over the hill, and Joan says, the doctor is the person you want to be. And he says, yeah, all right. And she says, oh, but he has an eye for the ladies. He's like, oh, yes, he does. And she says, a girl in every fireplace.
Oh, she says fireplace. I
Yes.
didn't catch what she said.
So a little callback there, a girl in every fireplace.
And I like that this episode is delving into history, which is what Doctor Who started out being, but it's not our history. So these Boer Wars that the British fought is something we don't really know about. And there's a movie with Michael Caine and somebody else. It's Breaker Morant. I think that's more accessible to us as American audiences. You can watch that to learn a little bit more about the Boer Wars.
That's the name of the movie, Breaker Morant. What
Yeah.
about The Man Who Would Be King? What's that one? That's with Sean
That's
Connery.
after the Boer Wars.
That's yeah.
Now I want to watch all these movies.
So that's something we don't know about.
Yeah. This is also where we get the moment where Gallifrey sounds Irish,
Yeah.
which I love. This is also the moment where his parents are Sydney and Verity.
Those are the two creators of the show,
Sydney Newman,
and Verity Lambert.
yes, who we thank at the end of every episode for creating this great show. And I also love Joan's line, he says that Verity, his mother, was a nurse, and she just says, "We make such good wives."
Yeah.
I love that line. There's just so much in that line, and it's so of its time.
As he walks her back to the school, Joan says she believes this imaginary doctor doing impossible things is the man John would like to be. Back in his room, he draws her portrait in his journal.
Like one of his French girls.
They share a kiss, but are interrupted by Martha barging in. He yells at her, and she leaves, going back to the TARDIS saying that there is nothing in his instructions to deal with the doctor falling in love. She returns to her room and meets up with Jenny, who is now Mother. Sensing something is wrong, Martha runs away as Mother shoots at her. She returns to John's room but cannot find the watch. She slaps John in an attempt to snap him out of it. She tries to take him to the TARDIS, but he throws her out of his room. He and Joan then head to the dance.
So, John, tell me, can you dance? Well, I'm not certain.
Are you certain about anything?
And the doctor dances.
And he's saying, I'm not certain. He doesn't say no, and he doesn't say yes. He just says, I'm not certain. Who is this person right now?
Yeah, because earlier when we saw him save the woman with the stroller, it's like to me that was like the doctor coming out wanting to help somebody. And then now we get back to this scene where he's uncertain. It's like, there is something in me, but I'm not sure what it is. It's like the two personalities kind of fighting over control of the body.
Have we ever seen this doctor dance before? The
Yeah,
last
we have.
one? I can't
He
remember.
would dance with Lady in the Fireplace.
Yeah, he came back drunk.
That's right.
And he was dancing around.
They play Rose's theme again when they kiss.
And see, that's what makes me think it's more for the love theme rather than the rose theme.
Yeah, I don't think it's one or the other, but I
Right.
think it's both. But it's Rose's theme.
Yes, but
Yeah.
they,
The
but they
love of
played
his
every time
existence.
an intimate moment happened.
Yeah.
What is it called on the soundtrack?
Rose's theme.
But it's a slight variation on it, which is nice.
They're-
So that's why I think it is more just love. But
On the soundtrack, there is no track for this moment. So it isn't, they don't play it on the soundtrack.
I think this is when Martha just finally gets it
It's wonderful.
that he fell in love with a human and it's not me.
Yeah, when she's
Ah,
replaying the
yeah.
video, that's heartbreaking for me.
Yeah.
That moment for me is a little bit too on the nose.
But I think it's the time
She
she
sells
finally
it, though.
gets it.
I
She
think
sees
she
it
sells
before.
She
Yeah.
gets it now, yeah.
But she still cares for the doctor. It's not, any kind of resentment or it's just she's still there for him and she still knows what he does. It's just
Because
that
she's a woman
she's
with
finally-
integrity.
Yes. But she's finally, I think at that point, that's where it's going to be turning, where it's never going to be me. Not just
Yeah.
that it's
Yeah.
not me.
Yeah.
It's never going to be me.
I think we needed that.
No, I do think we
I
need
think
it. I
she
wish
needed that.
Actually, that moment to me would work if there's just what led up to it in previous episodes. If I could divorce myself from like half of the moments, then maybe I'd be okay with it. But it seems like, oh, Martha, you're at it again. But
Okay.
I love the moment with Martha where she's had it with John Smith.
Yeah.
Oh, you complete this, and she's got the finger
Yeah.
going.
She's
This is not you.
She's back to modern day.
Yeah, this is where 2007 Martha is out and in full force, and boy, is that a gratifying slap. I mean, when she just slaps him, it's like, thank you.
But what's so great is right before that, the doctor's condescending, oh, she's from another country.
Yeah.
It's not voodoo, dear.
Yeah.
It's kind of, that whole attitude was just, that just triggered her going, okay, stop. We're going back
Just
to
that
reality on this.
complacent, arrogant racism, classism that he just is casually saying, kudos to Tennant. He does it really well. And then she's just like, I'm done.
This also is where Jenny becomes mother.
I love this scene.
To me, it was just so much the smoke monster from Lost. Just kind of coming out to possess
But
Jenny.
what makes this good for me is that Martha figures out she's possessed by just talking to her, kind of like how Rose talks to the
Right.
common characters in every episode. And she's like, I can get you tea with mutton and something.
Gravy.
Yeah, gravy, yeah.
Sardines and jam, which
Sardines
kind
and
of
jam.
reminds me of fish fingers and custard kind
Right.
of thing. But that Jenny doesn't know it right off the bat.
Yes.
That's odd. Going, wait a minute, what's going on? But then when Martha leaves, then she could access Jenny's memories. going,
Exactly.
wait, that's wrong. And that's why she's at the window and starts shooting
Yes.
at Martha as
Yeah.
she's leaving.
Kelsey, you did a little bit of research into the story that this was based off of, and you had an interesting thing about the weapons.
Oh, I just read it on IMDb. Is that research? That considered research? IMDb trivia.
With the there's a creature inside. Is that what you read?
Yeah, that they wanted the Family of Blood's weapons and their ship and everything to be organic. And when you pull the trigger, it jabs the creature, and then
It screams.
And then the creature screams. And then the scream emits the laser. So every time that you see the laser, it's a scream from a tortured creature.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it was abandoned because it was too difficult to actually show a creature inside or something.
Yeah.
But then back to what you're saying about the organic quality, even the way the gun is, it doesn't look like a normal gun. It's very
it's very unique.
It seems aquatic to me for some reason.
Paul Cornell wrote the novel that this is based on, and then they adapted it into the screenplay, and we'll talk about that more in the next episode.
And did they have the author do the screenplay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Martha meets up with John and Joan at the dance and shows him his sonic screwdriver and tells him he is the doctor. The family arrives at the dance with their scarecrow soldiers. Daughter tells them that John is the doctor, but they say he's no good as a human and needs to turn back into a Time Lord. They hold Martha and Joan at gunpoint and will kill them unless he changes back.
To back up a little bit, when Tim runs into Martha as she's fleeing, I love that cutting of modern day Martha with
was that a
1913
flashback
Martha.
No, I think it
was-
was.
It was
it-
filmed new.
It was-
Because Tim is there and Tim is still in his...
Yeah.
Because he's psychic, so he can see that she's not from this time.
and it's not,
That's
it's not from
what
a...
that was.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were getting like a flashback of a doctor memory.
It's more of an overlay. It's the doctor's knowing of who Martha is, and so Tim seeing the modern Martha, or Martha ran
No, I
away,
think
and then
it's
it's
just
kind of like overlaid of
No, that's
she's
good.
also modern.
It could be that, but I.
It's
Yeah,
not an
that's
exact scene. It's just
Also, the modern
that's cool.
Martha,
Connecting it.
it's modern Martha that turns and says, I don't have time, Tim.
I took it as it was his own psychic ability that he's had from the beginning of the
Yes.
episode. So like when he accidentally mentioned, what was it, Africa to that one student.
Yeah.
So he's constantly seeing things like that things that are out of time and psychic things. So that moment with Martha is probably what he experiences all the time.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the watch, like I first thought. And the psychic ability came up when at the dance, because Tim is sitting next to a window and the scarecrow appears in the window, and then Auburn was like, oh, he responded to that really casually, like no big deal. And I'm like, well, maybe he's not sure if that's real or if that's his psychic ability.
Oh, I like that take
so
on it.
like yeah,
But the watch, I think, adds to that. Gives him that look of what Martha looks like in modern times.
oh, okay.
That makes me pity Tim because he's going through life not knowing if this is real or not. He's like, is that thing scary? He's so
Well,
desensitized.
I think thinking that way, if you watch the beginning of the episode, that's kind of how he's been behaving. Like he is out of it.
Yeah, that's why he flies under the radar. He doesn't want to call attention because
Yeah.
he might say something
He
wrong.
Right.
really is hiding. He's hiding who he really is.
There's also just another quick call back to the theme of war happening over and over again. The old man asking for money at the door says, spare a penny for a vet of the Crimean War, and that's a British war that was fought in the 1850s. You've got this old man representing a war from the 1850s. You've got the headmaster, so the current adult generation are veterans of the Boer War, and then you've got these young boys who we know are all going to die in the trenches of World War One. Again, it's that cycle of war, and the doctor can dance, and he surprised himself.
Oh, and that piece of music, that waltz, is also an unreleased piece of music by Murray Gold. It's a shame.
Odd title.
I thought the ending was odd in that he had to choose which one they were going to kill, either Joan or Martha, because they wanted him to change back, and I don't understand why you'd have to choose one. It's like they're using them both as leverage to, we're going to kill them unless you change back.
Oh,
So-
I think it was more like
Who are we gonna kill first?
they grabbed Martha and they were like, change back or we'll kill her. Ginny was like, oh wait, no. I have Ginny's memories. He's in love with this other woman. Like, grab her.
Because he did say you have to choose.
Yes.
Oh.
You have to
The
choose.
last
Is it going to
lines.
be your
friend or your lover?
Or your
Oh,
lover?
your lover.
And it's actually from Russell. They did it because Russell thought it would be good to have a kind of literal representation of the entire story. This is the doctor / John Smith having to choose between the doctor and John Smith. But Frank is right. it doesn't make sense in the context of the story. How I kind of rationalize it away is they're going to kill everybody anyway, but they like drama.
Yeah, I think
So they're going to torture
It's a
him
good
first.
cliffhanger.
It was
Yeah,
more
it's a cliffhanger, but they're going to torture him first. They're having fun.
I want to bring up that the journal notebook was created by the artist Kelly Ann Walker, so she did a great job, and we have duplicates of it here.
I want
And
that journal.
this is also...
I wish that journal was real.
This is also the first time in the Modern Who where we see physical representations of the previous Doctors. So this kind of finally puts into canon that classic Doctor Who and modern Doctor Who are the same.
Yes, and this journal is real. We have 2 copies of it here. They're miniature. They're not full size. But the illustrations are there, and they show all 10 incarnations of the Doctor at this current point in the series. So I think that's great. Just a really good prop thing that they have. One thing I wanted to point out is that the chameleon arch, when it drops, I mentioned in the Cybermen episodes in season 2 with Rose that when they crash land on the alternate Earth, gas masks fall down from the ceiling of the interior of the TARDIS. And I was like, the chameleon arch should have been there.
Yeah, it didn't exist yet, but
So
I wish it
these
had.
are just pictures of the 2 types of devices that fall down.
The Chameleon Arch seemed very Cybermen to me.
Very much.
Very.
Yes. This episode is good for who? Or who is this episode good for? A new viewer, a casual viewer, a fan of the show, or a diehard?
I don't know if I want to start.
I'll do it.
Because I kind of want to hear what everyone else has to say.
Okay, I'll start. I feel this might be different from Arlene's answer. But for me, this episode is good for everyone, including a new viewer, because I think this episode is fantastic. I think even though the Doctor is not the Doctor, everyone on screen is talking about the Doctor. Even John Smith is talking about the Doctor. So you would get an idea of what this show is. This is a history episode. It's got Martha as a very strong companion and Joan as a great love interest for John Smith / the Doctor. And I think people would really get intrigued and really, really want to watch this. And also because it's just utterly fantastic.
You know, you've been watching up until this point, and you hear the Doctor talk about humans and humanity and how do you say it, Brian? The
Ordinary? Is it extraordinary?
The ordinariness of humans. You know, what would the Doctor be like as a human? I know we had a companion who would have loved to have the Doctor turn human, but I don't necessarily remember about this episode, but it's in my subconscious. Like, this episode influenced the way I saw the Doctor moving forward, I think, a lot. And I don't realize it because I don't remember it because it's in my subconscious now. But this is definitely good for a casual viewer. I'm on the fence about whether it'd be good for a new viewer because I feel like they would spend most of the episode completely confused and completely lost, and that's not how I want to introduce Doctor Who to someone. I don't want them to spend the whole time lost. So for me, it's like a hard casual viewer category for this episode and a soft new viewer.
I like that. I like a soft new viewer. I was going to say casual, but the more we've been talking about it, I think it's a very compelling episode. And you get, even though we don't have the Doctor, we get enough Doctor Who-y things in the episode that are, sci-fi geek out and this, that, and the other. And you really do get a sense for who he is. You get Martha doing very companion things. You get the Doctor on video. And I think there's enough in here that is compelling enough. But if you're a new viewer and this compels you enough to watch more, when you see it the second time, it's like a whole new episode. So I say a new viewer, leaning towards a soft new viewer.
I'll agree with Josh, Brian, and even Kelsey.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. No, I think it's a really good episode. And I would put it into the new category. It'll be interesting to hear Arlene's thoughts watching it with a new Who viewer. Yeah, even though we don't get to see the Doctor being the Doctor, like it does give you a good introduction to Tennant and the universe without the wackiness of sometimes the Doctor can have. Yes. And rewatching this for the podcast, I got to the end of this episode and I was really surprised. I was like, oh yeah, it's a two-parter. You know, so I think it's a good episode that will take people for the ride, and hopefully at the end of it they'll be more interested in continuing to take the adventure with the Doctor and his companions.
So I think this episode was very well written. Well, the next 2 episodes. I think they're great stories, but it's not a great way to introduce someone to the Doctor. Just because these episodes, it shows all of the personality traits that I dislike in the Doctor. I don't find him charming at all. I find him very white entitled man. So it's just like, it like grosses me out a little to see him being fully and not anything else.
I think that's really more of a sign of the era.
Which is true, but he's still like, if he's been given these memories, and every once in a while, as a Doctor, he shows white entitled male. That's coming from a Latin female. Martha's getting the short end of everything, and the subservient woman has to be black for this episode. If it would have been done with like one of his other companions that were white, I think I would have felt a little bit better. Women still get treated like Martha did in 1913, and it's 2017. So it kind of brings up a little bit of that ick. Someone who wouldn't be too sensitive to situations like this,
right, it
would be fine. I remember thinking, wow, this is a really cool concept. This is a great episode. This is a great time and space, but not for...
someone with a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah. No, I don't know about a chip on the shoulder. Someone human.
I have plenty of chips on my shoulder.
Not a new Who viewer.
To bounce off what you were saying about the sexism and the racism, when I was watching it, I immediately felt like my adrenaline spiked a little bit, but then Martha was so cool about it, I was like, oh, okay, that's right, she's got to keep control. Martha's in charge here. Like, it was like, I felt myself getting upset. So I think that's the point.
Uh-huh.
I don't think it was condoning any of these things. But
no, but it made her think that the Doctor was like that. Right. And that's why I wanted to give her context. I'm like, the Doctor's not like this.
Right. Oh, I see.
So it's kind of like,
is this? Why would I want to watch a show with this guy?
Yeah.
But that's why I mean, this is a two-parter.
What's your category?
And it's casual.
Okay. I really like this episode. Like you said, well written, mostly well acted. That one part just still gets to me about Baines. I don't know if there's enough of the Doctor in there for a brand new viewer. I'd rather this be either the second or third episode showing someone. But I'm sitting on the fence with you, Kelsey. I want to put it in what we have as our first category, that it's good for everyone. For Arlene, we've had episodes all the time, no matter if it's which one, but we're all thinking, is this good for a new Who viewer? And there's usually a caveat. So I'm really on that fence, but I'm going to go towards it's so well written that it's good for everyone.
That's funny. For me, my sister-in-law was introduced to this because I had the DVDs at this point, and I was watching them with my nephew, and then she happened to be with us that evening. And this was the first episode she watched because this was later in the evening. And by the time the episode wrapped up, she's like, this is not going to end. It's not going to give me the closure that I want. But it was late, and I had to stop and put my nephew to bed. And she was like wanting to watch the next episode. So to me, this is a new Who viewer category because she was able to get into Doctor Who. This was the first Doctor Who show episode that she ever watched, and then the next morning we picked it right up, and she is a fan of the show now. So I have the contradictory example to Arlene's example that somebody can watch this as a new Who viewer.
But that's what's great about Doctor Who. It has a wide range of episodes that you can choose from.
So you've heard our views. What was your first episode and introduction into the Doctor Who series? Please let us know. Email us at whonewpodcast@gmail.com. So that wraps up Human Nature. Join us for the conclusion with Family of Blood. We'll see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook.
At The Universe Explodes.
All our episodes are engineered by our very own Auburn.
Find me at auburnbinkley.com.
You can find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcasts.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
You can leave comments there or email us at
whoknewpodcast@gmail.com.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who.
The longest running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
thanks to Russell,
Sydney Newman.
Verity Lambert.
Ron Grainer.
And all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.
That's a great job. You can get it.
That's their party trick. All right, who wants to see me be an ood today? This is my ood. This is a scarecrow. Can you guess which one this is?
I love it. I want to befriend one of these background extra guys now. So.
Ralphie, do the ood. Do the ood.
I'm sure Eugene will have something to say.
All right, calm down.
wow, we're all snarky today. I like it. How long
Dialogue.
have we been recording already?
Just an hour.
So long. I'm like, make it stop.
I was like, oh, we're only at that scene.
There's so much in this episode.
We just